What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Scale Your Co-Living podcast, recent new rebrand, the number one authority in co-living real estate. I am so excited to bring you this episode of, I love entrepreneurs who are financially free. And it's just cool to hear their stories, right? Because that's like, we all want to get to a level of financial freedom, and then there's multiple levels to financial freedom. So I'm really excited for this episode because what I think it's going to do is break down different strategies for you to get to financial freedom and just get inside the mindset of someone who's used real estate, maybe not co-living specific. I know I bring a lot of co-living specific content to you guys on this, but this is going to show you a little bit of how the active world of real estate can work. And someone who's going to do over 150 deals in 1 year, who lives overseas yet remote manages a team. I think this is going to be applicable to all of you that want to build co-living businesses or want to remote manage a co-living team somewhere in the United States. Maybe you want to live in one place, or maybe you want to travel around the world and you don't want to be tied to a single location, even if you have 5, 10, 15, 20 co-living homes. I think there are going to be some lessons in this podcast that you can apply to that. So enjoy this episode, and I will see you guys on the next one. Ryan, it's so good to have you on the show, brother. I'm so excited to chat with you. I know we've been getting to know each other just a little bit, and I feel like this is going to help me get to know you even more. So welcome to the show, brother.
Let's do it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I want to dive right in because you have a pretty unique story. I think you think differently about money. I think you think differently about time. And right now you're in London. Is that right?
That's right. Sipping some tea.
Yeah, dude, I love this. And you manage a huge team, which we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about all things managing your team remotely. I want to dive into the 150 deals you're going to do while you are remote, which I think there are thousands of people in the real estate space that would just be drooling at the opportunity to do that. And so, man, I want to start by just a quick question of how the hell did you even get into real estate in the first place? Where did that start for you? Where did the spark come from for you? And how did you get into, let's just start there.
Yeah, I love this question because it really brings me back into what that mindset was like. It's almost like I grew up in a W-2 family, right? And I went to an engineering college. So I was a mechanical engineer. And it's almost like now it's a completely different life. It's hard. It's actually hard for me. It's almost like a page has been turned in my brain that I can't go back to. And so I love this question because it actually places me there. And I have to think about, I was working as an engineer at a college. I went to Colorado School of Mines, which is a really good engineering school. And then 2 years into my first job, I got laid off. I was like, oh my God, this happens. I mean, this is why I went to school and got a great job and I do what everybody tells you to do. Right. And I had this great starting salary and everything. And then I just got laid off and I was like, oh, so I really don't control anything. Right. And so that was really the first nail in the coffin. I moved cold turkey out to San Diego just to kind of start over, but still looking for engineering jobs. I got a great gig, but about 3 years into that, I got passed up for a promotion because our company was owned by a European company and they wanted somebody that spoke that national language. And so I was like, wow, I am really not in control of my own destiny here, not only professionally, but financially too. Because I thought the way that I was going to be able to live the life I want to live and do the things I want to do was by climbing the corporate ladder, right? And if you don't know any different, then that's just what you do. So there was a period after that of multiple years where I was like, what am I going to do? Am I going to go buy a bunch of ATM machines? Am I going to go flip stuff on eBay? Am I going to try and create an app? Seriously, I was not exposed to the entrepreneur world at all. And so there's a period of multiple years where I was just struggling to find my way and struggling to find the exit. And then finally I found Bigger Pockets, and that was my entry into, oh, okay, this is how there's a concept called passive income that you can actually learn about and cash flow. And then it just completely broke my brain and I went all in.
Man, it's such a common theme for people that are amazing entrepreneurs that they struggled with something in their quote unquote previous life. And I think I just want the audience to take away what a great lesson from what you just shared of don't run, struggle begets some beautiful things if you lean into it like you did. And so that's really, you know what I mean?
I'm so glad you brought that up because if it weren't for that pain of going through that, I never would have the life that I have now. And honestly, it was required for me to do it. So like my friends circle, right, is a lot of them are people that I either grew up with or that I went to school with as engineers. They're still working their 9 to 5 corporate job as an engineer, and like they're safe though. They have the golden handcuffs, and it's getting harder and harder for me to relate to that, because I'm like, well, you really have no control and you can get laid off any minute, and then like there goes your financial future. And hopefully your 401k is like whatever you need it to be whenever you're 60, or maybe if you're lucky when you're 55 or early 50s you can retire. And I'm just like, screw that, man. Like, now that you've taken the red pill, you can't like unsee everything, right? And I think people, the main message of all of that is like, failure and going through hard shit is the prerequisite for success. It's not something to be avoided. It is necessary.
Yeah.
It is necessary.
Wow. I got goosebumps as you said that, man, honestly, because like we all face that. And it's so hard in the moment to see that. But if anybody's listening to this right now and you're going through hard shit, that's right, like take that as an encouragement. There's an opportunity in there if you lean into it. And who knows what will come of that, dude. That's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful lesson. So where did you alight on in your journey? What, in real estate, man, you know this as well as I do. There's a million things you can choose from. You start listening to Bigger Pockets. It's easy to have shiny object syndrome and be like, well, Sam got on Bigger Pockets and talked about co-living, and this guy's talking about flipping and self-storage and industrial. And like, how did you narrow down? What did you come to of like, this is my path to financial freedom, and how?
Yeah. The best thing about real estate is there's a million different ways to make money. The worst part is there's a million different ways to make money, right? And especially if you're that entrepreneur type deep inside of you, you're going to be more prone to shiny object syndrome. And you're going to be prone to like, oh, let me try this for 60 or 90 days and see if it works. And if I don't get the result, it's the thing. It's not me, it's the thing. And it's not the thing. It is you. It's that you aren't committed to it and you're trying things when you just need to pick one thing and just stick with it, whatever it is. And so for me, it all came back to, it starts with the deal. You can't flip, you can't do commercial, you can't do apartment buildings, you can't raise money, you can't do all these different things within real estate unless you have the deal. And so I thought I was getting into real estate by creating this company that sources off-market deals. But really what I was getting into was a sales and marketing company. So, but that was like the impetus of like, I truly believe even now, there are multiple ways in real estate to get to financial freedom, but sourcing off-market properties is your fastest, most proven path to financial freedom. That everybody's like, oh, what should I do in real estate? How do I get to financial freedom the fastest? How do I quit my job the fastest? That is absolutely the fastest way. It's not the easiest way, but is the fastest way.
And you think it's the fastest way because you're doing what everybody won't do, which is like do the hard stuff to get the deals, and then you get chunks of cash. Like, tell me why. Go into a little bit more detail on that. If you were convincing me that that's the fastest way, talk to me.
Yeah, 100%. I am one phone call away from having $60,000 in my bank account next week.
Because I can find someone in stress, find this deal. As long as I have a buyer, I can then match those up, and like that's $60K right there kind of thing.
Absolutely. I can go to my county courthouse. I can get a tax delinquent list in any county in the US. Right. I can look up the phone numbers of that person online. I can call or text that person. I can get that property under contract, and then I can wholesale it to somebody else, or I can flip it or whatever. Right. But like once I get it under contract, all of a sudden, like I'm golden and I have an asset that I can trade for a huge pile of cash.
Yeah. But that reminds me, have you ever seen that show called Undercover Billionaire?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I think it was the first guy, and I'm honestly drawing a blank on his name. Great show. But I think that was what the first guy did. He was a billionaire in the loan industry, I think. And didn't he he gets dropped, and for anybody who doesn't know, you get dropped off with Undercover Billionaire. They take a billionaire, they drop him off with $100 in a truck, and they say, you have to create $1 million business in, I think, 90 days. And the first guy, that's what he did. He found an off-market deal, and I think he tried to flip the deal, right? Wasn't that his? Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. And so then when you realize that sourcing an off-market property, it might be 5 or 10 times the amount of work as getting an on-market deal, but it could be 100x or more of a better deal, right? Like then your brain chemistry changes, and you're like, I want to do way more of this. Because even as an engineer, before I did the off market thing, I was buying off the MLS. Like I bought my first 2 rental properties off the MLS. And then it wasn't until after that that I actually got exposed to wholesaling. Oh, what is that? I can assign a contract. And then, yeah, it changed very quickly into a sales and marketing thing of like, okay, I just need to talk to this many people and I get this many deals. It's all a math equation. And for my engineer brain, that really made a lot of sense.
Made sense.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's so cool. I mean, obviously we talk a lot about co-living on this podcast and, as a strategy for financial and freedom. But, I do meet people every day that are like, well, cool, I want to buy a home, but I don't have the capital to buy a home. And I kind of hear what I feel like my translation of what you're saying is like, look, you find off market deals. That is pouring gasoline on the co-living strategy because maybe you only buy co-living homes and that's that, or you sell them and you create capital to buy other assets. Like that's badass. Tell us a little bit, Ryan, so that's what you went all in on. I want the audience to understand that. Tell us a little bit about your operation, like where you are now. Tell us where you're living. Tell us a little bit about how you're managing that from a distance. Tell us like current state of affairs for Ryan Weimer Investments and everything you're doing now.
Yeah. So fast forward, like when it was just me at my engineering job, I was cold calling, lunch hour, nights, weekends. And I was an engineer cold calling, right? I mean, this is the worst case scenario for somebody that's very introverted and nerdy. Like I had zero social skills. I did grow up playing sports. And so like, I wasn't totally in a cave, and locked away. So like I could talk to people, but dude, just the mere thought of like me picking up the phone and talking to a stranger made me sweat and started shaking. And so that's where like I needed the pain to actually go through that and realize, let me just make 5 calls today. That's like the first thing. And then fast forward now, we have a team of 15. I'm here in London. We're traveling the world. And it's kind of crazy to think how we got to this point. And just like the quarters and the years go by and like all the hires along the way. But yeah, everything runs remotely. I have a COO and an integrator that runs everything from the US. I'm still very much involved in the business, but because I want to be, not because I need to be. I'm kind of going through this phase right now where we'll do about 150 deals this year, which is a record for us. And now that we've hired some people in operations and we have a sales team and all this, I'm having to reinvent myself a little bit of like, there's not as much things for me to do. So what do I do? And so really like this last quarter, it's been, how do I hire and attract the best talent that I possibly can to run our organization? That's the single greatest lever that I can pull as a leader and a CEO right now. So,
wow.
Yeah, crazy.
That's amazing. 150 deals. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that talk about financial freedom. There's a lot of people but they don't always have the courage. I mean, I faced this even in my own life. It's like you get to a certain level and it's like, well, moving to London, like, because you want to, is like, that's a big deal, dude. Like you did it. Congrats. Like you actually did it. And I think there's even people that are like financially free, but they want to stay close to their business just in case something happens. Right. And so for you to take that leap of faith, tell us a little bit about that. Like, what was that like to say, you know what? Because you mentioned something to me kind of off air before we started this podcast about how you think about financial freedom, how you think about money, what this is really all about. And I really want the audience to hear that.
Yeah. So the days are long, but the years are short. And so it's kind of crazy what compounding, just like compounding interest works financially, what momentum you can build in doing this by just making a few calls every single day over the course of multiple years and not missing a day. Right. And so like for us, money is just a vehicle. Like money is great and money gets you financial freedom. But now really what we're after is controlling our own destiny, controlling our own time and doing all the experiences and things in life that we want to do. So traveling is huge for us. That's why I got into this to begin with. And to be able to do that remotely it is weird now looking back and being like, oh yeah, you did it and you're here. But at the same time, it's weird to like you significantly underestimate, like you think it's going to take longer than it really does because you're working so hard at it and you're facing so much failure on a daily basis. And then a few years go by and you're like, wow, we're doing like 3 to 5 deals a month. this is it. Like I reached that level one financial freedom, right? And then it's like, what's next? Do I want to keep scaling? Do I want to keep doing more deals? Or do I want to go spend, 6 months a year in Thailand and just kick back? So like, that is the single greatest thing is like, you really, it's that friction to get the train moving. But once it's moving, you create some serious wealth building momentum. And then you add all these different strategies, creative finance, novations, installment method, wholesaling, like all these different ways that you can monetize deals and leads as they come in along the way. You become just an unstoppable force.
Yeah. And I want to get into all of your exit strategies. Once you get an off-market deal under contract, I really do want to walk through for the audience all the different exit strategies you have, because I think you mentioned earlier, that's what sets you apart. So it makes you guys different. I really want to talk about that. Before I do that though, and we kind of leave this topic of like I don't want to brush over how many people want to manage things remotely, but can't, or it falls apart. And so the fact that you're doing that and you're doing almost 150 deals is like insane. So put your coach hat on for a second, Ryan. If you were coaching me or anybody listening to this on what are the key elements that have to be in place to manage anything remotely? And I'm not just talking about a wholesale business, but let's just say someone wants to manage an out-of-state property, right? Or like I think some of the principles are probably the same. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe they're not, and you can coach me on that. But like, what are some of the, hey, I'm 1,000 miles away principles that someone needs to have in place, things that people need to be thinking about for them to be able to do that?
Great question. I think first and foremost, you got to have expectations that doing that is harder. So you're going to experience more failure. You're going to have more relationships that burn you, more people that steal money from you, and overall likely more bad experiences. Right. And so that just to keep it real.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to keep it real. And I'm not saying it's not worth it. It's absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
But like, if just in a simple form, like if I'm trying to find a property manager for a deal, maybe my first deal that I get or my first rental, I interview 2 or 3 property managers, or maybe I just got a referral from a buddy or whatever, and I try that out. Well, the more deals you do and the different areas that you do, like you're going to need to interview maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe 20, right? Because you're going to have bad experiences and some are going to steal from you and withhold funds. And we could go into some stories, but like I've had multiple horrible experiences with property managers, contractors, all stealing money, whatever. And so like it really does start with having that expectation that it's going to be harder. And I think if you go in with that expectation, it really sets you up for more success in the long term, because you realize, again, that failure is just a part of this. And if I'm not failing, I'm not growing. And this is just part of the process. So that's really step one. Now, tactically, like it really starts with having a great operator or integrator. So even though I'm an engineer, I'm not as good at systems or process or other things that someone else is. And so that's just a people puzzle. And in order to attract a rock star operator, you have to be a rock star CEO or visionary, or vice versa, whatever your role is. And so then you have to work on yourself. What do I need to do to be the type of leader or person that attracts a rock star operator? Well, I need to be able to pay them probably a pretty good salary. So I got to be there. I got to be a good leader. Like I have to know how to have difficult conversations and not avoid them, right? I need to know how to not rush into partnerships. Like I need to be involved I need to have a coach, or I need to be a part of masterminds. So I develop the skills to be able to structure the company the right way and give this person the tools necessary to succeed. I got to make sure we have leads coming in. I got to make sure we have a couple people on the sales team so that he can actually focus in his genius zone and not jumping into the sales team all the time. So like, yeah, that is the main puzzle. Is it's like, how do I get a rock star operator for whatever business I have? And then once you get that, everything just changes.
Yeah. I had a guy who's in my inner circle program, and he was saying he was traveling around the United States to find where he wanted to buy homes. And even though he looked at like the areas, like he ran all the areas he flew to, like he flew to Austin, he flew to Nashville, he flew to Charlotte, he flew to all these areas. And even though he did evaluate the areas, I thought it was really interesting because I asked him, I said, hey, how did you finally make your decision? And what he told me is very similar to what you're saying, man. And he said, like, it was where I had the operator. It was where I decided to go. Like sure, the areas were kind of, one was a little better, one was not as good, but like where I had the operators where I decided to launch. So my question about that is, and again, I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot with some of these things, but I actually am very genuinely curious because frankly, you've done a great job of it. And so, and I get the failure part. It's harder. I'm sure you've been through people. I'm sure you've been through team members and had to make hires. So I think that's great from a mindset standpoint. But if you were interviewing any operator, maybe it's just a property manager that's going to be the operator, the integrator for the properties you're going to buy in an area, what are some of the key things you need to look for in an operator? Is it just like their character? Is it their experience? I mean, how does your brain process? Because I know people are going to be asking this question, especially since you've done it and you're good at it. What is a good operator?
Yeah, I think it starts with understanding what niche they're serving. So like first of all, we do most of our deals, if not all of our deals in Idaho. We do go over the border into Oregon, just like 60 miles occasionally to do deals. But I have a different property manager for multifamily in Boise versus single family in Boise versus anything over the border in Oregon. We have a different property manager. And so like the reason for that is because they all niche down and do certain things really well. My property manager in Oregon, I don't really want to own properties in blue states with rent control and all that stuff, but they are experts at getting government funding for the rents. So they can get Section 8, they can get county vouchers, they can get government assistance to where my whole rent on the 8-plex we own out there is completely guaranteed every month.
Wow, that's
so cool. Like I don't have to worry about people squatting or not getting out because the government's going to send me a check either way, because that's their specialty. Right. So whereas in Boise, it's more red. Like if somebody doesn't pay rent, I can get them out within 60 days, no problem. So it really goes into what kind of niche are you trying to like go into. A lot of it's going to be bandwidth too. Like you're going to learn pretty quick how many properties are you guys managing? What does your current staff and team look like? What are the roles and responsibilities? Because some of these property management companies, they're trying to just gobble up as many property contracts as they can, right? And rental agreements. And then they're trying to scale to 300, 800, 1,000 properties. And they don't have the operations to deliver on that. So you're going to start seeing rent's going to not be collected randomly, or maybe you just get a $650 invoice, on your rental ledger one month, and you're like, what is this? And they don't really have an answer, or they didn't run it by you first, and they just start spending extra for repairs. That's a telltale sign. If they're spending extra on repairs and not pushing back on tenant requests for maintenance, that you need to move on and find a different property manager. So those are just some examples of, yeah. And your strongest ones are going to come from referrals and references. Mm-hmm. And so like the top players in your market, you got to lean into them. You got to add value to them, try to get in their circle in any way that you can, and figure out who they're using.
Yeah. It always kind of boils down to that relationship at some level, right? That's great.
Yeah. Also, you pay for what you get. That's important to know too. Like there's property managers in Boise that'll charge 5 or 6% of rents and nothing else. And it's a junk show. Like it is, good luck. Your property's probably going to get destroyed. They're not going to screen them properly because they don't have the finances to adequately staff to service your property and everybody else's properties. So you get what you pay for a lot of times.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Great recommendations there, man. I think that little section, everybody, is a re-listen to, take notes again, re-listen to, take notes again. That's actually brilliant. So you're doing 150 deals, man. And what I think sets you apart, one of your superpowers is you find off-market deals, but then you don't just have one way. It's not like you find an off-market deal, you put it on the MLS and you hope it sells, right? Like you've got a bunch of different ways to take these off-market deals and make money with them. And I'd love for you to talk about what are those different ways, and how that sets you apart.
Yeah. So I'll try to keep it can get confusing. So I'll try to keep this at a 10,000 foot view. You have to have, once you start once you start getting leads into your system, that's step one. Like, how do you source the leads, right? Is it outbound? Is it inbound? Inbound is going to be more expensive. Things like Google commercials, things like that, direct mail. Outbound is cold calling and texting. Most people start on outbound because it's cheaper, costs you your time, and it's a great way to learn. So that's how I started. And fundamentally, that's largely still how our business operates. We're adding more inbound channels steadily. Once you get the lead funnel dialed in and you have consistent leads, then it's all about your sales skills. And so having a defined sales process really leads into your entry and exit strategy. So what do I mean by that? It starts with really exhausting your cash offer as an option for sellers, right? Some people are going to call in, or you'll get them on an appointment and they'll be in trouble. They'll be in a foreclosure. They'll be tax delinquent. They need money now. They need to get out in the next 30 days. That's going to be a great candidate for a cash offer, right? So you have to, in order for you to even go into any of the other strategies like creative finance, installment method, novations, you have to fully exhaust the cash offer as an option for them. Why? They're not going to see any difference. Like, these aren't people that are in the real estate space, right? They don't even know. They know what their neighbor's property sold for 3 months ago, but that's it. They don't know anything else. Most of them don't even know what a seller finance is, let alone a subject to, right? So like, you have to fully exhaust cash as an option for them to even see that there's an advantage to doing something else. So that is the most important thing that sets you up for success. Is like,
and what do you mean when you say exhaust it? You mean just like, go to that first, make sure you offer that, basically what you're saying?
Exactly. Like, how much do you need? Okay, you want 200 for the property. Well, on a cash offer, it looks like other investors are paying in the 110 to 120 range. It doesn't sound like that's going to be a fit, right? And seeing how they react to that. Because some of them are going to say, well, yeah, I mean, could you work with me a little bit on it? And that's how you know, oh, okay, they're not hard set on 200. They would take something less. And then I can still keep working that cash option. See, if somebody said something like that and I jumped right away to, well, we could just do payments over time and we could come all the way up to your 200. They're not going to go for it because it's all going to blend together for them. So that really comes down to like having a defined sales process. And then you can get into all the fun.
So by exhausting that, you mean like, hey, I'm going to push that. I'm going to fully exhaust me giving them as little cash as possible for the home.
Exactly. Yes.
Got it. So, okay. I'm not like launching into another strategy. Yeah, I agree with this 100%. It's like people a lot of times in life, especially in a sales process, don't need more options. They need direction, right? So you're just like,
yes,
cash is good. If I can get it for 130, I'm going to really push for that. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yes. That's a very, very important distinction, because I can tell you where beginners mess up is a seller will be like, well, just email me over some different options and I'll look at them and review them.
Yeah.
Right. No. And so that's their version of providing different options to a seller is, here's option 1, the cash offer. Here's option 2, the creative offer. Here's option 3, the novation. And when you send them all together, you never get those contracts and you'll never hear back. Right. So that is a very important distinction, because when we really push the cash offer as an option, you find out a lot more information. Because they think that's about to be it. The appointment's about to be over. So then they start relaxing and we're really getting to the truth now. Oh, you don't really need 200. You need, 30 grand from the sale to pay off credit cards and catch you up on taxes, and then to buy an RV. Oh, okay. So you're trying to get to here, right? And more of the truth comes out. Then with more information, I can be like, well, it doesn't sound like we're a good fit on the cash offer, but what if there was a way I could get you that 30 grand you need? And then, make the rest of the payments to you over time. I mean, would that even be something that would work? And if they're curious into that, oh, okay, now all of a sudden I might have a seller finance, I might have a subject to type of deal. But you have to, again, we got to completely eliminate one of the options first before we jump to the next.
That makes sense. So let's talk about the fun options. Let's talk about like, okay, you eliminate the cash offer. Where do you go from there? What are these other options? And frankly, what do some of these terms even mean that you're throwing out there? Novation. I mean, just let's catch us up.
Yeah. So to just keep it oversimplified, it's going to come down to time and money. So either they're willing to trade speed and convenience for equity, right? Or I said that wrong. Either they're willing to trade speed and convenience for price, right? Or they want to get top dollar or just slightly under. So price is most important to them. Okay. So like, once we understand what the seller's actual situation is, then we can make a determination of, is a novation going to work? Is a creative finance deal going to work? Maybe they should just go list it with a realtor traditionally, whatever, right? So what do those terms mean? A novation is where I'm getting the property under contract at a set price, let's say 200, and then I'll list it for 250 for them. And then let's say we get an offer at 250. We take care of all the realtor fees and commissions, anything that comes up on the inspection report, whatever. They net walk away with 200, but we get the spread. And it's essentially an easy way to think about this is it's like wholesaling on the MLS. Yeah. Which is a really essential strategy right now because owner occupants pay more than investors. So like when interest rates changed in 2022, 2023, Boise got hit pretty hard, and a lot of markets, Denver West, got hit pretty hard. Investors are not buying. So how are you sourcing your off-market deals like going to make money? Well, if you sell to owner occupants, they don't need to make any money on the deal. You don't need to leave any spread for them like you would a wholesale or an assignment, right? You can if you're selling to an owner occupant, then you're just going to make more money. So that's what a novation is. Terms would be like a subject to, you're taking over the monthly payments on their mortgage, or a seller finance. Instead of going to a Wells Fargo or a Chase to get a mortgage, you're just making payments to the seller every month.
Yeah.
And they're financing it for you.
Yeah. I think the most interesting point of this is what you shared just a little bit ago of like, you have to identify whether this seller is going to really want, is price most important to them, or is like getting the most amount of cash important to them? Like speed, convenience, I guess, important, right?
Yeah. And that's why we beat the cash up to a pulp, right? Because then it becomes more clear, right? Because a lot of these people, some of them don't even know, and so you're doing this live with them, like trying to help them get from point A to point B, what's important in your life. I mean, guys, a home is the most emotional asset for people. They've got memories in there. A lot of them are in distress. There's, stuff going on. Maybe they're a hoarder. There's all kinds of, where are they going to go next? There are all kinds of elements that you have to delicately walk people through this process and have multiple phone calls with them and build trust and rapport. It's a lot of work, right? Yeah. But it becomes, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but it becomes, I'm curious what you're going to say there.
But it really becomes, when I build enough trust and rapport, I can get to the truth. Once I know, it's like when you go into a doctor, you wouldn't lie to a doctor, right? You got to tell the doctor the truth so he can help you. And so that is the dynamic of the doctor-patient relationship we want. I can't even help you determine what strategy is best for you until I know more about your situation. See, where everybody else messes up, they shoot off 100 lowball cash offers to sellers and hoping one or two people accept. And it's just the complete wrong approach. That's why we destroy everybody else in our market, because we're like genuinely there to help them, even if we're not the right fit.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I love that you're just giving your secrets away right here, man, on the podcast. That's awesome. You're like, we destroy everybody, and here's how we do it, right? It's so cool. Thanks for being so transparent with us.
Yeah.
But what would you say to someone who's listening to this and says, "Holy crap, I don't have the skills to do like that is a fairly complex process, and you've mastered it. That's great. But what would you say to the objection of like, I don't think I have the skills to like talk to somebody like that and walk them through all these options? Like, what would you say to someone that says that?
Yeah, you're not going to, unless you put in the reps. It's just like, right? It's just like if you want to run a marathon, you're not going to be able to run a marathon day one. So like that for me was, I got to make 5 phone calls every day. Like that was my very first that was my very first goal. It's like in my engineering job, over my 1 hour lunch break or whenever it is after work, I got to make my 5 property calls today. I'll go on Zillow. I'll call on Zillow for rents, like whatever it is. But that is brick by brick how success is made. It's not this overnight social media thing where people are flashing checks and they got rich overnight and they hit the jackpot like they just went to a casino. No, it's like doing the boring work day after day after day that nobody sees. So yeah, that it's not an objection. That's the truth. Like you are going to suck at it when you start. But it's about, first of all, do you have pain that's pushing you out of something? And what is your why? Like for me, the combination of those two things, if I do this for long enough, I will get better. if I make 10,000 phone calls, I will not be as bad. It'd be impossible for me to not improve, right? And when you look at it through that, it paints more of a lens of pointing the finger back at you, which is really like, do I really want this? And that's where shit gets real, because then it's like, it's not something out of your control. No, it's just on you. Are you willing to put in that level of work to have all the great things in life, have financial freedom, live in London, travel the world, like all these, have a team that runs without you? It just takes a lot of work.
Yeah, well said, man. I appreciate you giving the real here.
Yeah.
Do you coach people on that process?
I do. Yeah, we have a Real Freedom community. Yes. Yep. We do. We specialize in finding off-market deals. We team up with people all the time in these different strategies like novations, creative finance, installment method, because they're lesser known and they're harder to do.
Yeah.
So,
and I can only imagine if I was, and again, what you've described is not my superpower, right? But what you've described, I can only imagine you would accelerate decades into days. Yeah, I mean, you would compress time by having someone like you as a coach that's like, no, this is exact. Because what you gave us on this podcast, which I really appreciate, is a system. You said, hey, I know this doesn't work. Do this, right? And do this, and then do this, and then do this. And you have a system to it. And like, that's just necessary, right? To someone like me that doesn't, that says, wow, that's a cool superpower.
yeah, I'll just leave you with one more thing. Is like, with people that come into our community, like the first one-on-one meeting I have with them, I set them up with a Google Sheet. Why? Because it's the simplest form of accountability of like, are you talking to your leads? Are you like, what progress are you making on a daily basis? I don't care if it's 1 minute. Let's track it. Right. And so that is the simplest form of how, even without a coach, you can get started, to start tracking your daily habits, you know? And like, yes, we have a company that does all these things and whatever, but like in the early days, it was literally just me on a Google Excel spreadsheet tracking my 5 calls per day and how many no's am I getting. I would also track my no's because I was tricking my mind to welcome the no's instead of fight them, and celebrate the no's because I knew I just needed to get through them. Right.
Every no gets closer to a yes.
Absolutely. For me, 450 no's was a yes. 450 no's on the phone was a signed contract.
Let's go.
Right. So absolutely. Like, I tricked my mind into be like, yes, I got another no. Yes, I got another no. And at the end of the day, it was just like this just dopamine release of like, yes, I got to my 5 no's and I'm filling out my spreadsheet. And that just made me feel so empowered and so good and fueled into the next day to take action. So
dude, that is awesome.
That's how it starts. Yeah.
What a powerful mindset. If someone's interested in coaching with you, where do they go?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach out to me at Real Ryan Weimer on Instagram. That's the best way to contact me. You guys can also check out my YouTube at Ryan Weimer. There's a lot of free content on there. We've also got our Real Freedom podcast too. So lots of free education, lots of free stuff, all armed to equip you to take steps towards your financial freedom.
Super great. Man, one of the strategies, so the strategy that we talk most about on this podcast that we've kind of built this podcast around is co-living. It's a rent by the room strategy where we double, triple, quadruple the income on a single family rental by converting it to this co-living / room rental strategy. And it's powerful, but I think it's even more powerful combined with the skills that you've shared on this episode.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I want to get your thoughts on like, how do you see these two superpowers of like co-living, your increasing rental, and if someone learned the skills that you're talking about, how do you see the combination of those just being amazing? I would just to talk about that for a minute would be really cool.
Dude, if I had somebody on my team that could do that, we would add millions to our bottom line every year.
Yeah.
because cash flow is really difficult to come by right now, right? That is the number one struggle with investors in this market with high interest rates. So if you have an ability to hack the system and get cash flow, I mean, you possess a superpower then that everybody else is struggling with that you need. So like any property that we're getting right now on subject to, for example, or creative finance, like last week, we just got a property, $220K contract, 0% interest seller finance deal. So 0 interest, right? The payments to him, though, that was the one thing he wanted. He was willing to do 0% interest if we paid him like $1,400 a month. Well, the property might only rent for about $1,500 a month. So after my property manager, maintenance repairs whatever, like I'm in the red with cash flow. If I can rent by the room or I can do a co-living situation and that gets me in the green, I have a wealth building machine because now I have free interest and then I'm getting cash flow on top of that, plus any appreciation tax benefits. I mean, good God, that is a grand slam.
Wow. Yeah. And so, audience, the audience listening to this, I want everybody to take away, normally we're talking co-living, but I really wanted to bring in Ryan and talk this strategy because I feel, as Ryan is saying so beautifully and eloquently, the combination of these two things could be freaking amazing, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so Ryan, it's just amazing to kind of hear your superpowers, man, and hear what you've been able to do. And I think you brought a lot of value to the audience today. What advice do you have for someone? Last question I have for you, brother, is what advice do you have for someone who is on the fence about stepping into either the strategy you mentioned or stepping into your coaching or stepping into their next step? What advice would you give them and how would you get them off the fence?
Yeah, for me, it required pain, which is, again, kind of a not so fun way to put it. But honestly, right?
Yeah.
Like you either have to have an incredibly powerful why, like you want to change the world, or you have to be uncomfortable in your current situation. And so you have to, it brings it back to, you have to know yourself. A really useful frame that I use when I'm not really sure what to do, or maybe I'm like feeling anxious, is I reframe and I say, what would my 80-year-old self think? What would my 80-year-old self do? And it reframes it for me into the person that I want to become and how he would have lived his life. And that really helps me point me in the right direction of like, a lot of times like, dude, you just need to suck it up and go for it. Or yeah, that maybe this isn't the right time. It's too risky, whatever, we'll do this then. But that single reframe gives me a little bit more clarity about like, what is the very next action that I need to take? Because I don't want to be my 80-year-old self living in regret, like wishing that I would have done something.
Well said, man. Kind of one little layer deeper that just came up for me to ask you is, do you think you can like inflict pain without like, can you self-inflict pain? Like, is that question even make sense? Like, can you?
Yeah. Here's a tactical thing you can do that I still do to this day. I have a not a secret bank account, but a bank account that's a lot more harder for me to access. And so I never keep a large amount of money in my primary bank account because I have found when I have large amounts of money in my bank account, my action level goes down, right? It's a natural human thing. We get comfortable. We don't have that like need to do anything. So we don't do stuff. And so I have to like trick myself to remove funds out of my bank account and put them into a different thing that's harder to get. Now, I'm not saying always invest all that in properties or the stock market or whatever. Like you need to have liquidity on hand. But yeah, having that hidden secret bank account, if you will, really helps me hack that for myself.
Dude, that's a beautiful hack. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's really, really, really cool to create some of that sense of urgency. I think even Grant Cardone said that recently. He was like, when I get money, like I spend it because like I don't want to have it in my bank account thinking I'm all comfortable and I got it. Like, so that's brilliant, dude. That's brilliant. Ryan, this has been a pleasure, my man. Thank you for bringing the fire. Thanks for bringing the value. Thanks for just being so transparent. I really feel like you pulled back the curtain and said, here's what I do. Here's my secret sauce. And here's how I do it. And here's some of the hacks I use for my own life, my own business. Man, congrats on all of your success. It's beautiful to see how what you've come. And you're an example for a lot of people to follow, man. So keep up the great work. If someone wants to, if you would just, I think we've already talked about your social media links and things like that, but maybe drop those one more time here. We'll link them to the show notes. If someone wants to just connect with you and just follow you, I'm assuming best way is Instagram.
Yeah, at Real Ryan Weimer on Instagram, or you can check out my YouTube at Ryan Weimer on YouTube, or my podcast, the Real Freedom Podcast. Lots of free information out there for you guys. And hey, even if you're not coming to the Real Freedom community or wanting to sign up for coaching or program, just shoot me a DM, whatever you're struggling with. I guarantee you, me or someone else on my team will have the answer for you, and we'll be able to help.
Brother, I appreciate it. Thanks for your heart, and thanks for being on the show.
Love it, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a fun episode to dive into. I hope you enjoyed that. I got a quick ask for you as you exit this YouTube video or this podcast. Would you do me two big favors? Number one, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. That helps us get the word out about real estate and financial freedom and co-living to as many people as possible. That's our mission. That's what we're here for. And then if you're watching this on some sort of podcast platform, would you give us a review? And if you loved this episode, if you're loving this content, please go give us a 5-star review. If you hate this content, please also go give us a 5-star review. But either way, give us a 5-star review. Helps us get the word out to more people. I love you guys. We'll see you on the next episode. God bless you.